Hey guys, welcome back to Algebra 1 Summer Prep. We are going to pick it back up today with Lesson 6, and this is all about inequalities. So when you think about inequalities, you should think about like equations without the equal sign, and instead of an equal sign, we're going to be talking about these less than and greater than signs. Okay, so y'all have learned a little bit about inequalities in the past probably. It's probably something you actually started learning back in elementary school about less than and greater than and stuff like that. So we're going to start with some basic stuff. We're going to talk about graphing basic inequalities on a number line, and then we're going to involve some algebra in it down here. And then on the next page, we're going to graph linear inequalities on the coordinate plane. So you'll notice the big difference is these are inequalities that have x and y variables in it, which means you graph it on the coordinate plane, as opposed to the first ones we're going to look at, which just involve the x variable. So if it just has an x variable in the equation or the inequality, you're going to graph it on a number line. So let's jump in here and fill in some of these notes. So in basic graphing, and again, some of you guys might have already learned this part, you are going to use an open circle. This is when graphing. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Use an open circle for, and this is going to be for, we'll say less than or greater than signs, okay? And then when we graph it, you're going to use a closed circle for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to signs. Okay, so let's actually show you some examples of this. So 1 through 4 right here is practicing graphing very basic inequalities. So this one says x is less than 3, okay? Make sure you have a good idea of that sign. I have a lot of kids that say, I can't remember if that's less than or greater than. Well, if you think about it, it's both, okay? It just depends on which way you read it. Like for instance, if I wrote this statement, 4 is less than 5. We know that's true, okay? 4 is less than 5. But if you read it the other way, from right to left, you would say 5 is greater than 4, and that's also a true statement. So it just depends on which direction you're reading it from. So I don't like to just memorize less than and greater than signs. I like to have a good understanding of them. And some people may have learned like the open part of it like eats the larger number. So, and that is true. You could kind of think of it like that. So if it's open like this is going to be the bigger one. So that means this is less than the 5, okay? Or you can say the 5 is greater than the 4. So just a basic recap in case you forgot how those worked. So this one is x is less than 3. Well, I know if it's less than or greater than without the line underneath it, then it's going to be an open circle as we put up here on the notes, okay? So what I would do is I would locate the number 3 on my number line, and I would put, so if the 3 is going to be over here between the 2 and the 4, I would put an open circle on it, okay? And then you're going to shade either to the left or to the right. So that's when the sign comes in handy. If it's x is everything less than 3, then we're going to shade this direction, because on a number line, these are numbers less than 3. So the way I would do that, you can really just like darken the line. Good thing I have this tool. So shade the line this way. And then I just draw the arrow on the end. That's it. That represents x is less than 3. Let's take a look at number 2. X is greater than -1. Okay, so I know I'm going to locate -1 on the number line. Looks like that is right here between 0 and -2. There's no line underneath the inequality symbol, so I know it's an open circle. And if it's x is greater than -1, I know numbers to the right are always greater than. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to shade that direction, and then that's it. Okay, how about number 3? Okay, this one here says x is greater than or equal to 7. Okay, so this is going to be one where we used a closed circle instead of an open circle. So let's locate the number 7 that we're talking about. Let's see, 6 and 8, so 7 would be right here. So I can start with an open circle, but I'm going to close it on up. I'm going to fill in that circle, and that's specifically because it has the line underneath it. it means we also include that number itself, greater than or equal to 7. Okay, and then greater than means I'm going to shade to the right. I'm going to go everything that way. So they don't give you a lot of room to do that here, but that's okay. Just darken that part of it, draw your arrow, and that's everything that's greater than or equal to 7. Okay, last one of this little section. X is less than or equal to -5. So I'm going to locate -5. Here's -4, so -5 would go this way. And this is going to be another closed circle. So I'm going to close it on up. It's because of the line underneath it. And if it's X is everything less than or equal to -5, I know less than is going to be numbers this direction, because numbers this way are bigger than -5. So less than is always going to be to the left. Let's draw that. Perfect. Okay, now 5 through 8, they just want you to go in reverse here. So they're giving you the graph on the number line, and then you have to write the inequality that represents that graph. Okay, so let's take a look at number 5. I know it's going to be like X is something to a number, right? So let's look at the number where the circle is on. It's -2. So it's X is something to -2. So I would probably, oops, there's my timer. So I would probably set it up like that first. Okay, now let's figure out the type of sign. Well, I know it's shaded to the left, so this means it's numbers less than -2. So I'm going to go X is less than -2, and I don't put the line underneath it because it's an open circle. So that's it. Okay, number 6. Let's try this one. Well, right away we can see it's a closed circle, so we're going to have the little line underneath our inequality symbol. Let's put our X over here. Let's see, our number is going to be 4. Okay, and then it is shaded to the right, numbers greater than or equal to 4. So I'm going to say X is greater than or equal to 4, just like that. All right, number 7. You might want to pause this and try the rest of them yourself and then play it and see if you get them right. So we've got an X on this side. It looks like we're going to have a 0 over here because that's our number. It's a closed circle, and it's everything less than 0 to the left. So I would say X is less than or equal to 0. The or equal to part is because of the closed circle. Okay, and then last one here, number 8. Okay, so let's set it up. It's going to be X is something to, that would be -3. And it's an open circle, and it's shaded to the right, so it's going to be X is greater than -3. All right, so hopefully that stuff was a little bit of a review for you over inequality symbols. And let's talk about actually solving like algebraic inequalities here. These are all going to be, it looks like little two-step equations or two-step inequalities. Okay, you pretty much, if you kind of glance over these, you solve them the same way you would if there was an equal sign there. So you already know how to do these, but there's one teeny little exception, and that's what we're going to fill in up here. Okay, so we're going to fill this in. So it says you must flip or switch. We'll go with flip. You must flip the inequality symbol when you, and this is when you multiply or divide by a negative number. So let's fill this in. And I'll explain how this works after this. So if you multiply or divide by a negative number. Okay, and that's if you multiply or divide both sides of the equation or the inequality by a negative number specifically. All right, so I'm sure we're going to encounter that on one of these, and I'll show you when we get to it if it's one of those weird kind of problems where you have to flip your inequality symbol. All right, number 9. So it wants us to solve it and then graph it. So let's look at solving. If you want, you can like draw your line this way. It works the same as if you have an equal sign there. So I'll do that on the first one, okay? So first thing we'd want to do, well, we want to isolate our x, so let's subtract 2 from both sides. -2, -2, so the 2's will go away here. Bring down our 3x. Now this is going to stay a less than sign. It's easy to like accidentally turn it into an equal sign, so be careful with that. It's going to stay this less than sign, and then we have -4 minus 2, so that's -6. That's like -4 plus -2. Okay, and then we're going to divide both sides by 3. divide by 3. Now take a note here. We are dividing both sides by a positive number 3, so no flipping of the inequality sign will happen. So this is pretty straightforward. So we will still get x is less than, we'll keep the sign the same, and that would give us -2. And then we're done once we have the x by itself on one side and everything else on the other side. All right, and then last step would just be to graph it. They give you kind of a blank canvas of a number line here. These are always the best ones because this is what you can do. You don't need to put like 0, 1, 2, and -1, -2. Just go like this, y'all. Whatever this number is, which is -2, just stick it on your graph anywhere. I always just put it right in the middle. And if it's x is less than that number, I'm going to do an open circle. And I know I'm going to shade to the left. Everything less than. And that is it. So make it simple for yourself. Just put the number in the middle. And that's totally fine. Okay. So we haven't come across a weird one yet. Let's see if it happens on this one. I don't think it will. Probably the one after. All right. So if you want to draw your line, go for it. I'm not going to, but you can if you like to keep everything lined up that way. Okay, so let's locate our x. It's right here. I want to get rid of all the things around it. The first thing to get rid of is going to be this +2 out to the side. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides first. They will cancel, and I will have x over 6 is greater than, we got to bring that sign down, -1 minus 2 will give me -3. Okay. Now, we did go over solving equations like this way back in, I don't remember, lesson 1 or 2. But if you've got division going on right here, remember the way to get rid of that is by doing multiplication, the opposite operation. So I'm going to actually multiply by 6. Whatever's in the bottom of your fraction, you can multiply to get rid of it, which means I also have to multiply this side by 6. So here, these 6's will cancel out. I'll be left with x is greater than, and this is 6 times -3, so -18. And keep in mind, we're not flipping the sign or anything because we still multiplied both sides by a positive number. All right, x is greater than -18, so that is our answer. And then to graph it, let's throw -18 on the graph. It's x is greater than that number, so I'm going to do an open circle. And then greater than would be shading to the right always. And that's it. Okay, this one, I do think something weird is going to happen, so I'll get to show you this whole flipping the sign thing on this one. All right, so first up, we're going to subtract the 8 from both sides. Those will cancel, bring down -7x is less than or equal 1 minus 8, that's going to give me -7. Okay, and then this is the weird part. Now, you know we're supposed to divide both sides by -7, right, by this number. Okay, divide by -7, nothing weird there. Those will cancel, bring down your x. Now, because you are dividing both sides by a negative number, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the sign. And when I mean flip it, it doesn't affect the line under it or anything like that. You just make that less than or equal a greater than or equal. So you just flip it the other direction. And then -7 divided by -7 would become a +1. Okay, so there's an example of some of those weird ones. And that's really the only thing you have to watch out for with these inequalities. Otherwise, they're just like solving all your other normal equations. Okay, then we'll graph it on our number line. So we'll put our 1 here. X is greater than or equal to 1. So I know that's going to be a closed circle. Close it up. And if it's greater than that number, it's going to be everything to the right. Okay, good. Let's try this last one here, and then we'll move on to the harder ones. But they're not that bad, I promise. Okay, obviously we are going to add 5 to both sides. This is like the one above it that we just did. Okay, so we've got x over -8 is less than -2 plus 5, which would be +3. And then we know to get rid of that -8, we multiply both sides by -8. And like we put in the notes above this, if you multiply or divide by a negative on both sides, then you're going to flip your sign. Okay, so these will cancel, and we will be left with x is greater than, got to flip it, that would be 24. Okay, so let's put our 24 on our number line, open circle, and greater than 24 is going to be to the right. So hopefully you have that part down now. You've learned some of those weird, tricky ones. Okay, that takes care of all those. If you want to go try those ones on the practice sheet, go for it. But we're going to go ahead and move on to graphing on the coordinate plane. So let's take our short little notes over this real quick. Okay, so it says at the top here, graphing linear inequalities is a way to show all the ordered pairs that are solutions. And here are our steps to graph. Okay, we got step 1, step 2, and step 3. So first step is to put the inequality in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. If it's not already in slope-intercept form, sometimes it is. And remember, that's just your y equals mx plus b. Okay, and it does say be sure to flip the inequality symbol if you multiply or divide by a negative. So good reminder there. Okay, step number 2. Let's see, graph the line. Use a dotted line. We'll start with this one. Use a dotted line for less than or greater than symbols. Okay, and then we will use a solid line for less than or equal or greater than or equal to symbols. Okay, so whenever you graph these, instead of just graphing a straight line, sometimes you will graph a dotted line. Okay, and that's going to be if you literally don't have the solid line under it. So if you have these, then it's a dotted line like the one I just drew right here. All right, so I think that's easy to memorize because it's only solid if you literally have the solid line under your inequality symbols. Otherwise, if it doesn't have it, it's going to be a dotted line. Okay, so you know when you graph these, it's going to be solid or dotted. So that's one thing you have to remember with inequalities. And then the last thing is step number 3. When you graph inequalities, your answer is actually going to be not the line itself, but a side of the line that is shaded. So your answer is like a whole region of the graph, not just the line itself. Okay, so let me show you how to shade. We will say, let's say, shade above the line. This is where it can get a little tricky, but you're going to shade above if you have any type of greater than symbol. Okay, so this is going to be for greater than or equal to. Okay, and then you'll shade below the line. Shade below the line for anything that's a less than symbol. So for less than or equal to symbols. And then that's it. So those are our 3 steps. Let's do an example. And feel free to reference these steps as you go, since this is all new information for you. So we know step 1 is put the inequality in slope-intercept form if it's not already. Our example, it is not in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept will have the y by itself. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so this is the stuff we worked on the last lesson. So let's see if we remember how to do this. Now, I want this y by itself, so I want to get rid of the 2x first. So to move all of 2x over, I subtract 2x from both sides. So that's going to cancel. I'm going to get negative 3y is less than, and subtracting doesn't flip the sign. Make a note of that. It's only if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number. So you get is less than, and over here we put negative 2x. We want to write the x term first, and plus 15 because it's positive. Okay, and now we would divide everything by negative 3. And we are dividing by a negative on this one, which means we will flip our inequality sign. Okay, so this is going to give us y. Now that less than will become a greater than. Simplifying negative 2x over negative 3. Well, negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, so we can make this positive 2/3 x. So you just pull your x out to the side. And if you don't remember how to do this, go rewatch the previous video because we talk about it in the last lesson. And then 15 divided by negative 3, that's going to be a negative 5. Okay, we have it in slope-intercept form. That was all of step number 1. Now, step number 2 says graph the line. And then just keep in mind, you're either going to graph a dotted or a solid line. Now this one, if it doesn't have the solid line underneath it, it's going to be a dotted line. All right, so let's go ahead and graph this. We've had a lot of practice graphing, so hopefully remember how to do this. So I'm going to graph the negative 5 y-intercept first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here. and my slope is 2 over 3, so I go up 2 over 1, 2, 3. And I could keep doing that, but I'll be off the graph, so that's it. And then you connect them with a dotted line in this case. So you just gotta kind of carefully draw that. Mine's not super straight, actually, but that's okay. You get the idea. Make it as straight as possible. And our last step is gonna be shade, okay? So it says shade above the line for any type of greater than symbol and below the line for any type of less than symbol. Okay, so just to give y'all an idea of this, if this is our line, above it would be all of this, and below it would be all of this. Okay, so this is a greater than symbol, right? Y is greater than that whole line. So I'm gonna shade everything up here. So I'm just gonna pick a different color. You don't have to color it all in, but you wanna clearly show you shaded above your line. So that would be good enough for me. Okay, good. Let's practice some of these. If you feel like you've got it down and you want to try them on your own, go for it. Otherwise, we're going to work through these. Now, the first two look relatively simple because we can skip number 1. They're already both in slope-intercept form, and we know that because the y is all by itself. Okay, so I can skip to step number 2 for number 1. So step number 2, I graph my line. Let's do it. -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna make my first point right there. Oops, that's really big. And the slope of 1/3, so I go up 1 over 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna keep making points. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna make as many as I can. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3. And remember, you can get points in the other direction by reversing your slope. So from here, I can go down 1, left 1, 2, 3. Down 1, 1, 2, 3. And I can keep doing that for a few points. I try to get as many points on the graph as possible because it's so easy to do. Okay, now we decide, is this going to be a dotted line or a solid line? Well, there's no solid line underneath this, so it's definitely dotted. And this is always like so hard for me, but you know, I make it look the best I can. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So I draw a dotted or kind of like a dashed line. And then I decide, okay, which side am I gonna shade? Well, I do have a greater than symbol, so that means I'm gonna shade above my line, everything above. And that would be it. Perfect, okay, let's try another one. All right, again, this one's in slope-intercept form, yay, those are always our favorite ones. Let's graph our line. So I'm gonna start with that -1, put a point right here. Now my slope is -2, or you can say -2 over 1, so careful with that. That means we're gonna go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. I can keep repeating that. I'm gonna get as many points as possible, and then I'm gonna get more points this direction by going up 2, left 1. Let's see if I can get up 2, left 1, 2, left 1. I can do them pretty quick because I've done this a million times. Okay. Solid or dotted line, that's our next decision. Well, we do have the solid line underneath it, so we draw a solid line here. And luckily I have this little tool that will do it for me. Okay, I've got my solid line. And then we gotta decide, okay, which side do I shade? Well, this one is a less than, right? It's less than or equal to, but less than regardless, which means you shade underneath the line. Now, I do have kids that get a little bit confused the steeper the line gets. They're like, what's considered under and what's considered over? So I like to think of it, I think I had a student show me this one time. They were like, I think of it as a staircase, right? If this is a staircase and you've got a little guy walking on the staircase, whichever direction, less than is underneath the staircase. So that's gonna be, in this case, this side of the line, right? If it's less than, it's underneath the staircase. If it's greater than, it'd be above the staircase, okay? We are dealing with a y is less than the line situation, so we're gonna shade everything underneath. So hopefully the staircase thing kind of helps you visualize above or below. All right, 2 left. All right, now number 3, it's not in slope-intercept form, unfortunately, so we got to do some math to get it into slope-intercept. We have had a lot of practice with this, so we know we first want to subtract the whole 5x away from that side and the other side. That's going to cross out, and we end up with negative 2y is greater than, and I'm going to put the x term first, so negative 5x plus 12. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Let's go like that. Okay. And then we are dividing both sides by a negative 2. So you know what that means? We're going to flip our sign. Negative 2's cancel. We get y, switch your sign, is less than. See if you can simplify that side. Negative divided by negative is going to give me a positive 5 over 2. I can't simplify, so I'm going to leave that as 5 over 2. Pull the x out to the side. And then 12 divided by negative 2, I get negative 6. So there's our line, slope-intercept form. Let's go ahead and graph it. All right, negative 6 is our y-intercept. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my first point. I have a slope of 5 over 2. So I'm going to go up 5, right 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 2. I'm going to do that a couple more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. Okay, now solid or dotted line, well, I don't have the solid line under it, so it's going to be dotted. So I just carefully draw this dotted or dashed line. And then let's decide on our shading. So it is the less than sign, it's y is less than. So again, if I think of it as a staircase, right? And there's like somebody on the staircase, less than would be underneath the line right here, okay? And that just takes some practice of just being able to visualize what's considered less than and what's considered greater than or below and above the line. Perfect. Okay, last one. Let's do it. Wait, make sure I did that. Yes, because we flipped our sign. Less than. Okay, last one here. All right, let's get it into slope-intercept form. Here's my y. I first want to get rid of that x, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So I get negative 4y is less than, over here I'd write negative x plus 8, because the 8 is positive. And then I am dividing everything by negative 4, which means I do flip that sign. So we get y is greater than, now careful with this, negative divided by negative is a positive. Pull the x out to the side, and keep in mind it's like there's a 1 there. So the fraction would be a positive 1 over 4x. And then this, of course, would be minus 2. And there is our inequality, our equation inequality. And let's graph it now. So I'll start at negative 2. I'm going to go up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to keep doing that. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to get points to the other side by going down 1, left 4. 2, 3, 4. Down 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Looks like this is going to be a dotted line because we don't have the solid line underneath it. So I'm going to carefully draw my dotted line. And then this is a pretty steep line, so it's kind of easy to tell, like, oh, this is above it and this is below it without thinking of the staircase analogy. So y is greater than the line, greater than, I know means I shade above. And that's it. Okay, let me zoom out here. That is all the inequalities. I know that was a lot, but hopefully you understand that. Feel free to watch the practice video, and I can work through some of those with you if you're still having a tough time with it. Otherwise, good job, y'all.